Hi, this is Terry. Welcome to Snowdrops Sunsets, and welcome to my coming out video. I haven't done this video before. Well, it's just the timing. The timing has come, I think. I've just been inspired to do it. It's a very personal video. I want to talk about my spiritual journey, my personal spiritual journey, and my development, my experiences as somebody who has always been aware. I've had a strong psychic, clairsentient, clairvoyant ability that I've had to manage, alongside mental distress, mental health problems, which I've done videos in the past that explain how they kind of coexist. And I think part of my path has been exposing myself, or my life path has exposed me to a series of traumas, some very serious traumas that I've had to overcome. And all of it's kind of combined for me, where I've come to a point now, I feel like, I feel in alignment. I feel I'm able to be true and whole in myself. I understand my abilities. I understand my unique gifts. I know how to use them. And I'm pretty much 99% sure I'm not insane anymore. So for me, this is like a thread that I had for a long time, for a period of my life where I would hide my abilities, this sixth sense that I have, mainly because there was some part of me that was still very vulnerable around it. I'm sure I don't need to, explain that witches have been persecuted in the past. We've been killed, women who have extrasensory abilities. And now I think there's similar kind of energies going on in the world around science, that science is somehow science hasn't proven anything, but people seem to believe that science has proven that God doesn't exist, that psychics are con people, all this sort of like it's been so negatively charged in our society, I think, around having extrasensory abilities. And it's been put in the category of you're cuckoo and crazy. And so for a while, I really had to consider that. Am I crazy? In the back of my mind, I've always known I'm not, and which is why I've spent a lot of time practicing, honing my abilities, really understanding what's going on, so I am able to use them in a controlled way, in a way that I understand, that's not going to potentially cause harm to other people or myself. And I just wanted to do a little video, I suppose, just talking a bit about myself and my spiritual path, and how it's kind of led me to start doing these videos around the subject of healing, and potentially I might stretch into doing videos around the subject of spirituality and sharing some of the tools that I've learned, if people are interested. To start with, I don't like labelling myself. I don't like labeling myself with anything, because I'm aware that we can't really be labelled like that. I'm a human being, and a thread of consciousness that's experiencing itself through this body of a human being. And I don't want to limit that with a label. But if I was going to put myself into categories, I have skills, I suppose, in shamanism. I'm able to channel earth energies and communicate with different beings, different living beings, plants, animals. I can actually now use my consciousness to tap into any thread of consciousness and understand it. A lot of what I do in my videos is channeling, and I suppose that would then go into the category a bit more of being psychic or clairsentient. And to me, they're all kind of interlinked anyway. That's why I don't really like separating it out or labeling what it is that I do. But channeling is essentially being able to tap into a certain frequency of consciousness. For me, I can tap into several at once, and then use myself as the vehicle to express what needs to be expressed. Often when I'm doing my videos, the reason why I use the name Snowdrops Sunsets is because, and also Terry, is because they are the main threads of consciousness that I express myself through. obviously I'm a human. I was born Terry, was the given name. But actually, when I was also born, my family were into spiritualism, and I was named into the spiritualist church at a week old, and Snowdrop was the spirit name I was given. So I've kind of been aware of that my whole life, that I've had that name. I didn't use it for a long time. And as I've evolved on my journey, when I had to go through more of an earthbound 3D transformation, and I was able to tap in my energies to Mother Earth consciousness, I was given the name of Sunsets. That's my fire energy. And I don't want to talk too much about myself because some of it's quite personal, like the understandings that I have of myself and my character and my nature, but I just want to explain a little bit while I use them different names. So yeah, a lot of the channeling that I do and the videos that I do, Snowdrops Sunsets, and the Snowdrops element is, you know, coming from above, if you like, a higher level of consciousness, spirit speaking through me. And the Sunsets is the name given to me from my fire earth energy that comes up, and Terry is the human that I was named. So when I use the name Snowdrop Sunsets, that's what I'm doing essentially, is taking information from these two channels and then expressing it. And I use my personal experience because that is the only truth that I can be sure of. And it's important to me that everything that I say or I'm saying, whether or not it be true to anyone else in the world, is authentic to me, to my experience and my thread of consciousness. So yeah, going back to the beginning, since I was a child, I have been very aware that I've had these abilities, or that I was able to sense things that other people couldn't. I was aware I had a strong instinct and could understand things other people couldn't. And I learned probably about age 3 or 4, I'm not sure how old I actually was, but not to talk about it. Or that it was essentially pointless talking about it because most people did not understand. So some of the experiences I had when I was little is, for example, I remember really vividly astral projecting, so leaving my body and being able to view myself sleeping once, and move around my home and watch the other people sleeping. That was a very early experience that I remember and I'm conscious of. And I had another experience where, because I had left my body slightly in the astral projection plane, I came down the stairs and I'd flown down the stairs. Obviously my body had walked up the stairs, but I was like 3. Like I say, I was really small, 3 or 4. And it was an amazing experience. That's why I still remember it. I can still feel the feeling and everything. It was like, it felt like I was flying. So I remember going into the room and saying, I just flew down the stairs. And I was very quickly told by the adults, no, that's not possible. I was like, well, I just did. And they said, no, you can't have flown down the stairs. And that was the moment that I remember just thinking, they don't understand. They don't know what I mean. And obviously I was a child. I didn't have the language to be able to fully express what I meant. And so from that moment to now, I've essentially kept that part of myself pretty well hidden, I think. And I actually hadn't even realised how hidden I had kept it. Different people in my life will be aware of it, especially people who are close to us. I might have shared that with, or if you've been in my home, it's like potentially quite obvious some of the things I have around that I'm into, different ideas around consciousness, but it's not something I ever talk about. I've been very protective of it. Mainly, like I say, partly because of the mental health or the mental distress that I was going through at the time, and that fear of being labelled crazy or a fraudster or a liar or a trickster, you know, all these labels that get put onto that. And for me, that's not what it was, never has been. So yeah, from that moment of about 4, I think it was, I just decided not to talk about my spirituality, my spiritual journey with anyone else, or with very few people, and that I was going to embark on it myself. Because I've always had such a strong connection with spirit, I have used my spirit guides since that age to guide my process. And I have been very aware of that. Now, I call the thread of consciousness that I tap in that comes from the source, God. I like that term. Gift of divinity is how I break it down, and that channel for me is a channel of pure divine love knowledge that you can tap into, that is literally only, all it's interested in is bringing about the highest, best, good and most potential of whatever being is channeling the consciousness. And it's the source of life. Comes from above, the way I see it, and it links to the sun, and it's just how I understand it. And that thread of consciousness I've worked with forever. I've also been very aware of my guides that have come and gone over the years that I work with at different times. They're different forms of energy that come and work with us to teach me different things, to inspire me into different directions. And again, I've always worked with them, not spoke about it because I understood them, but other people didn't. Yeah, so there's also been periods, there was a pretty significant trauma I went through when I was 11. And at that point I completely rejected spirituality. I had been, up until that point, very, very, I don't know what it is, I want to say goody two shoes. Like, I was a little kid, right? But because I was connected to this source, I feel like I just always wanted goodness in the world, and to see the goodness in the world and tell people about the goodness in the world. And I was very curious and asked lots of questions. And then when this happened, I went to the dark side. I decided that was rubbish, you know, because this horrible thing had happened. And that's, I suppose, when I started to explore a bit more of the shadow world. And I have. There's certain things I haven't done, but I've done a lot, and I've been through a lot. And there are different energies. Like I say, there's energies above and there's energies below. As above, so below. They are just as powerful and strong, and they did take over my life for a long time. And that would be unconsciousness, I would call it. Just complete refusal to believe in anything better, or believe in anything, any higher source of power other than myself. For me, the idea of the devil is complete ego, earthbound consciousness. And even, I've never followed any, I'll talk a little bit about religion potentially in a minute, but I've never followed any religions avidly. I've never followed dogma, never believed in dogma. But some of the terms that I use or talk about that are comfortable for me have come through that. And I've got a bit of an understanding the story of like Lucifer, the fallen angels who, you know, basically went against God and decided, you know, humans should be able to decide their own fate. And them angels kind of now tap you into your earthbound energy and are demons, and they will definitely work through you, for sure. Angels and demons exist. I've worked with angels forever. There's different levels of angels, and we all have an angel guide. I've literally had my life saved by my angel guide before, and you know, I had a witness to that. Like, we were in a really serious car accident, and this white beaming light being just, they didn't stop the accident, but we all survived, and we damn shouldn't have, you know. Physics, the police, everyone was like, how he was all alive. There was damage caused, but we survived. And yeah, that one was a pretty intense experience that really solidified my undying belief in angels. I have tested angels to the limits. They have never let me down. I suppose that's what I really like about angels. They're light beings. They can't actually manifest in human form, or they can't actually do physical things, but they can direct us, give us signs and symbols, and they will intervene if God's will is about to be, you know, you know, if we had died in that accident, that was not our path, so that angel was able to intervene and save us. Because I knew angels exist, I rejected the whole idea of a dark underworld for a long time, and just kind of tapped into that angelic realm, which took us pretty high at some points. And because of that, I had to crash down to earth. So my journey has definitely been one of ups and downs, and looking at both the higher spiritual aspect of life, where we are all connected, we are all threads of the same consciousness, we are all good and wholesome and have this wonderful ability to love within us. And then the other side, that we are human, we're flawed, We have not negative drives, we have human earthly boundary drives that can take us into directions, and we do real harm and cause real damage and violence to each other. Both is true, both exist, and I've experienced them. So my personal journey, like I say, I want to talk a little bit about religion because I've never followed it. I've always questioned dogma for sure, and there was a period where I was very like anti-Christianity as well. I used to say some really awful things about Jesus and God and all the rest of it. Now I understand it. It's quite ironic because I have actually worked with Jesus as a guide, and also Mary Magdalene, his partner, and Mother Mary. I actually work with the Marys more than I do Jesus, because actually, you know, the Bible is a patriarchal document written by men who didn't fully understand spirituality because they rejected femininity, and the female middle path guides are just as powerful and have very different insights as the males do. So the whole story of the Bible based around Jesus is one-sided, and they haven't even really mentioned these two really influential guides, female guides, that were by his side, his mother Mary and his wife Mary Magdalene. And I've worked with them, and they're amazing guides that have really, really supported me on what I call the middle path between these higher realms of reality and our earthbound reality, and how to actualize the space between them. So my family, like I say, my mum particularly was into spiritualism, and I have had experience in that church from quite a young age, and then didn't for a very long time, and then went back. So I was actually trained. I went back when I was having a lot of psychic confusion. Really didn't know what was going on. I kept getting really, I could essentially see into people's souls, and was getting these messages about things that we're doing that weren't particularly helpful for them, we'll say. And when I was expressing that, you know, they were telling me it was right, and it was really causing a lot of distress in people, and I was confused by it all, and had to go back to the spiritualist church to try and find some sort of guidance and support. And while I was there, trained doing spiritual healing. Didn't complete the training. There's many reasons I've never completed any training, and I have a real issue with this whole idea of qualification and external certification and one-sided education. I know my path and my way of learning was best for me, and I didn't really need anyone else to validate that. But I did actually train and learn a lot from spiritual healing at the spiritualist church, and they also taught me a lot about channeling, how to understand what was my own thoughts, feelings and expressions, and what was, you know, coming from an external source. I've also spent a lot of time as a kind of, obviously a lot of channeling, you have to be able to control your own mind, you have to know your own mind. So I spent a lot of time exploring Buddhism, and I've done a lot of retreats, spent a lot of time meditating and really being able to control that aspect of myself. I've had to, like I say, to be able to make sense of the information I was getting, and also to help my own mental distress. So yeah, I've worked with Buddhism for a long time. If you come to my house, there's like angels, there's Buddhas, you know, there's Buddhas everywhere, and plants, because I even work with them now. Sorry, I went off on one. Yeah, yoga is something that I've delved in a little bit. I mean, I'm not a total yogi, but there's some. What I'm trying to express is that I've never followed a single path of religion or dogma, but I've followed my own guides to be able to take up practices that have helped me on my journey. And I've actually been developing my spirituality for a long time, for as long as I can remember, but secretly. And now I feel like I've kind of not come to a conclusion, because I realise I've been forever growing and forever learning, but I've come to a point of, like you say, yeah, I understand myself now, and I'm ready to give or express what I understand to the world, and potentially support and help other people. And yeah, I think the time is now, right, with the situation going on. We need healers, we need people who are aware of consciousness and higher perspectives of life, and how to ground that right down in our earthly reality. It's just a personal time for me to start really living in my truth, and that's why I was moved to do this video, because I've been doing other videos and I've kind of touched on it, but I've never talked about my journey, my perspective, and why I've come to the conclusions I have. Pardon me. Maybe that's it for this video. I'm trying to think if there's much more else I would like to express as part of my coming out. So the skills I can work with. I mean, I'm pretty good at reading cards and tarot. I love that as a way of communicating, but I actually am not particularly keen on the idea of fortune telling. It's got a time and a place sometimes, but actually I prefer to use the cards, and I use my abilities to help people understand themselves and to find peace within themselves between the higher potential and the earthbound reality. And the skills that I have developed have allowed me to be able to do that, and I just have them all as tools. I also I receive messages. So one thing that was really, really difficult for me, I suppose you call it, what do you call it, precognition? Is that the right word? Prophecy? Prophecy. Both. Precognition, prophecy, whatever you want to call it. Spirit decided they would give me messages of things that were going to happen, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Especially considering some of the messages were quite intense. So for example, which is why it fits in with the timing for me. So for example, about 7 years ago, I'm not even sure how long ago it was, Spirit told me there was going to be a major event, global event, that is going to change reality as we know it. It's going to be a critical point for ushering in a new world, and it's going to be orchestrated by certain energies, and that the consequences were going to be that certain freedoms and liberties and access to resources are going to be restricted. And that was horrid. Like, can you imagine actually getting that message? You're like, what? No. So I just started kind of, one, trying to cover up my reality, but two, trying to justify it and validate it in another way as well. Am I crazy, you know? And now it's all playing out. I don't feel crazy anymore. So hence the timing where I feel like, well actually, all this stuff that I've been, like, was told, you know, in the past is now come to pass. So no, I wasn't crazy. I was actually spot on, and yeah, it's just given me more faith in myself and my abilities and spirit. I mean, I've always had faith in spirit, but you know, you think, why are you telling me this? Truth is subjective. I mean, that's one thing that I really, really understand is we all have our own truth. Yes, you can find a collective truth, but one way spirit has worked, or you can only understand what you can understand with the level of consciousness you're at. So one level of truth is true in that moment of your consciousness, but actually when your consciousness expands, your truth then expands and changes. So yeah, that was just something that I've had to come to understand, and that's potentially why I sometimes challenge science, medicine, some of these systems that we have in place, that I'm like, well, we're developing a lot of physicality, our earthbound lives, but we're not actually developing our consciousness as a species. And if you aren't developing your consciousness, then you can't understand things on a different level. So for me, it's essential we do both, as above, so below. I do this a lot, you know, it's like the infinity symbol. We're very, very bottom heavy at the minute, and I think it's time we need to, we're being forced to, we are being forced to, and we need to expand our consciousness in order to balance out this really, really deep, broad, physical, material reality we've been living in. And I know that it's part of my path to be part of that journey with people. Not saying everybody, but for sure it is with some people. Will be drawn to work with us, and I'm really at that point now where I feel I can help people. For me, there's been prophecies for a long time about a new world, about the return of Jesus Christ, which I find, I laugh because I've always just thought people take religion not so literally, like God is not a man sitting in the sky, and Jesus is not like the saviour of the world. He was just a man, like what Buddha tries to say, I'm just a man, I'm just a person that can reach, you know, a different level of consciousness. And for me, the second coming of Jesus is not about a certainly not, I was going to say a person, yes, it's definitely not a man that's going to be reborn. It's not a person that's going to be reborn that's going to save humanity, which is still what a lot of Christians and Catholics believe, I think. It's a consciousness. We are now at a critical point where we are being asked to step into our Christ consciousness, and Christ consciousness is a bit like what I'm explaining. It's expanding your consciousness to a point that you understand God, you understand the high perspectives of realms of life, then you can bring it down to an earthly existence and express that into the world. And only by, I genuinely believe this, only by doing that can we save ourselves and the planet. Like, well, I keep saying the planet, but Mother Earth is not going to it's not going to suffer us. You know, if we do not get our act together, we'll just be done. Like, we are indispensable in the eyes of Mother Earth. Like, she loves us dearly, but if we're going to literally destroy the planet and every other species she's created, she'll just get rid of us. One way or another. One way or another. Sorry, I like that song. Yeah, so for me, that is what the Christ consciousness is, and this prophecies that for years has been coming, the age of Aquarius, all of it. Like, we are now at a critical point where we are being invited to step into Christ consciousness. For me, Christ consciousness is the middle path. It's like I say, taking our highest potential of consciousness and grinding it into earthly being. And when we do that, we can create heaven on earth. We can create a world. It's never going to be perfect. Like, life is not. Like, life is not. Like, we have this whole idea that only goodness is good and we all aiming for total happiness, and it's not like that. It's not what it is. Christ consciousness is about peace, fulfillment, harmony. Doesn't mean everything's always nice all the time, but it just means we're not constantly being violent in conflict with one another. We can live amongst each other and understand that life is complex and things happen to us, for us, through us, for a reason that is beyond our human comprehension. Like, we can't even, like, it just makes me smile so much when I think about, you know, science, and you know, we think we're so clever. We think we're so clever. Like, humans are so arrogant. We think we're so clever. We've got no idea what this is. Like, we just have no idea what life is. Like, and I think about it, you know, all the time, you know, and it's like, we just don't know, and we never ever can, because we're just humans. Like, it's not in our realm of consciousness to understand. And as soon as you think you understand it, you've reached a level, and then you can expand and you can't understand it again. And I think it's a gift. I mean, God, when you really think about what we are, like anyway, I'm going to go off on one thinking about life and how we even exist, because the truth is we don't know, but it's magical, right? And when I live in that realm, and now that I understand my place in it, it feels good, and I want to use my life, my path, my experience, my body, my understanding to help other people to find their alignment, and then hopefully co-create the world that we all want to live in. And I think this is the point, you know, the new world is being created, and we have an opportunity now to really, really live in the vision of heaven, the Garden of Eden. And if I can be part of that, even for like some people in their lives, to find their alignment and their peace and find harmony in their lives, and it's important to us. And I think I'm done with this video. I'm rambling a bit now, and I'm really grateful you watched. Thank you. Yeah, blessings. Take care. Please like the video, subscribe. Sorry, that was probably YouTube being really crap, but yeah, I'm just trying to build up my channel and stuff, you know, earthly pressures. I'm just like I just said, to share what I can with more people. And I think we're at a critical point now where people really need to hear that there is a higher perspective to life, that we aren't just bones and flesh. We are, but there's more to it than that. And some people are going to really enjoy hearing that. And if I can reach them people, that would make my life, keep me in my alignment and my harmony. Anyway, I'm babbling. Thank you. Bye.